Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Christina Capella. So we're here today to talk about the RIC. If you've seen this picture out in our entryway here. I was part of the RIC group that created the document, and I think BJ wrote most of it up, and then we tweaked it and grammar wise, and we went forward from there. And so we are now officially an RIC church. We all voted to accept it, which is wonderful. Steve, my friend here, he's from the Church of Galilee, and they are in the process of working to become an RIC church until everyone's in a different place as far as
Is that Galilee over here in Roseville?
Yes, the one on the hill, on McCarran's in the right street. Yeah, yeah. So my pastor asked me, she said, how did the RIC meeting go? Because she said, I couldn't make it because I had something going on. She said, are we behind? And I said, no, we're right on.
Yeah. Everybody goes at their own pace. So, on when was it? April 25th, I believe it was. We got together with some neighborhood churches, and we held a discussion, and it was very interesting. And we wanted to get together with other churches and say, okay, now we're at this point where we're officially an RIC church. Now what? So we kind of did some brainstorming and tried to come up with some ideas of where we could go from here. You know, should we enter the Pride Parade? Should we? And so we had a very collectively, it was very interesting discussion.
Like discussion, basically the subjects that we talked about, we talked about really three things: transparency, visibility, and we talked a little bit about what's going on in the transgender community with healthcare, and as well as the bathroom situation for transgender folks. So those were the three main things that we talked about.
I have been in contact with the local high school here. I have 3 children, and all of them will be graduating from Ross. One thing that really stands out about Roseville is that they already do have a LGBTQIA+ group for the youth there, and I believe every single staff member wears a pride pin. So right from the beginning, it's very visible, and as far as inclusivity to the youth, and that they are welcome to speak up and if they have any issues regarding that. They did get back to me. I emailed them and the group leader, and they did respond to me. They're in transition now. They're going to have a new leader, and they said reach out again next fall. So I plan on doing that.
So there's some exciting things to look forward to.
Yeah. One thing that was also brought up at our meeting is the importance of stating our pronouns. Mine is she, her. Just little things like this can really help somebody who may use they, them, or a different, not something that you wouldn't guess is their pronoun, I guess. So,
And I want to say one thing about that, since you brought up they, them. I am a gay man, and came out 30 years ago. And I have been learning things this year. I was in a meeting and with a transgender person, and I called that person they. I called that person he, and it wasn't a he, or they wasn't a he, they were a they. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, how can I'm supposed to be supportive of my LGBT community and I don't even know pronouns? And so I went online and educated myself. There are a lot of people. The reason for people oftentimes that are anti something or against something, it's usually because they don't understand or not educated about it, especially with in the last 5 years, the inclusion of transgendered people more visible, as well as the new letters on the LGBT QIA plus.
Yeah.
It gets to be a lot. So people say, well, I don't understand. Am I supposed to use LGBTQIA? I use LGBT. It used to be GLBT. What? How do you know what's politically correct? And so you just be educated. I mean, do the best you can. And I was just to let you know, I was forgiven, but I certainly learned something very important. So, and education is always wonderful.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Because I need to be educated as well, and I'm just asking why the use of the the plural pronoun for one person, like they.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to put that or you want-
Well, I'll say something, and if I'm wrong, you tell me.
I don't use they them, so.
Okay.
There's no, I don't know that.
Um,
We're all learning together. This is a learning process. Can I just say that?
To me, what I understand about they is that this is when non-binary comes into play. It means they don't, they either subscribe to being both male and female, thus they, or they don't subscribe to either gender. That's what I understand. Am I wrong?
I don't know. We would have to ask somebody. I think we would have to ask somebody who uses that
Yeah.
other pronoun, so.
Yeah, but that's what I understand it to be, and I think I got it down. Pretty much, I hope.
So we're all,
So we're all learning, it's a learning curve.
it is, and, you know, we're gonna all make mistakes, and as Steve points out, it's generally people are very forgiving, because we're all learning together. I've done a lot of volunteer work over the years. And when somebody comes in and we don't need to put people on the spot, you know, what pronouns do you use? Because I don't know what to use and why not. And sometimes I just introduce myself and said, hi, my name is Christina. I use she, her. Can I help you today? And so that kind of leaves it open, you know, they can address it. They can give me their pronouns if they choose to, which more often than not, they do. Go ahead, Peter.
In the way you just use the pronoun they, because they could give you their pronoun. That's an example of how we use they as a singular.
Correct.
In our standard English. So it's not such a stretch to use they and them.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of a twist on
Mhm.
what we usually do.
Yeah. It does, I'm finding that it does take practice, and it takes some extra effort, because we're so used to she or he. And we're kind of locked into that, but after so many years now, that I'm finding that it's become much easier to, after practice and use, so.
But would it be helpful? I usually just, when I meet someone new, would tell them my name first, introduce myself. If that person would say a name back to me, that would be helpful too, but maybe that doesn't happen often, or you have to ask in your name.
Yeah,
Or-
I've done that as well.
Mhm.
Another thing, what does the plus stand for?
Is that questioning?
Yeah,
Or-
but
There's so many other things
see,
potentially that
Yeah,
people could be.
many times, it has been said, and excuse me, I don't have the scientists that develop this, but in studies in homosexuality and gender identity, there's a continuum. this continuum, and if you want the information, I certainly can get the resource for you. It's here's heterosexuality and here's homosexuality. And it says that most of us as a society fall somewhere on that continuum. Not always. Like I'm talking to my sister this week, she says, I support the LGBTQIA plus community. I really do. She says, but she said, I know for 100% certainty that I'm heterosexual. So, and I don't know how you guys feel, only you know that, but sometimes it's often on a continuum. So the plus would probably include those people on the continuum that are questioning. That's my guess.
Any other questions?
I thought the plus when I first heard it might be, first was LGBT and then they kept, it seemed like we kept adding, and I thought the plus was just take care of persons we hadn't thought of yet. But that was only a guess. I like your.
Well, I mean, what we're trying to do as a whole, and I think this includes, we can't forget that as RIC, we're also striving for equal rights, not only for the LGBTQIA plus community, but also for people who are African American or Black or brown or whatever they refer to, that everybody is equal. But I think that as a general whole, what we're trying to do as an RIC is we want everybody, and this has been my dream, everyone in the world but eventually feel included and feel like a human being.
That could well be what the plus is,
Mhm.
and everybody else was mentioned in that.
Yeah, I think it's worth the discussion. I mean, I think that everybody should be able, I mean, I haven't really studied the plus, but that's from what I understand, from what I have studied. What you're saying and it's questioning and stuff like that. That's what I understand.
The RIC first started as inclusivity as far as the LGBTQIA plus community. But then it grew and we learned more about intersectionality and how, how does this affect a queer person if they're also a person of color and things like this. So some things we came up with in the meeting is, maybe next year we could join the Pride Parade. Maybe even this year we could do a Pride booth. Maybe we could put a Pride flag down at our end of our driveway here. This is the Pride flag, and from my driveway, it's a little tattered. I went to Target this morning, but they still
You
have
should
their
see mine.
Pride stuff out yet. So lovingly worn there, yes. And I just keep it out in my front yard all the time. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you tell me what the IA means? What is that?
The A, I believe, I think the I has something to do with interested. I think that's the people that they're interested in it. They want to say, well, this looks interesting, but I wonder if I am or I'm not. So there's, like I said, with the continuum, there's various degrees of questioning. And I think I is that A. I think I'm gonna research this and get back to you.
Asexual.
Asexual, yeah.
And I think the I is intersex.
Intersex, okay.
There are persons who anatomically have aspects of different sexuality, and
What does intersex mean?
Intersex.
Oh,
That's,
intersect.
that's a great question.
Intersects,
No, it is.
persons who have,
CT.
It is an intersect.
The CT at the end or X?
X, it is a X.
It is an X,
Yes.
okay.
Intersect.
yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's persons that have aspects, as they said, anatomically of both sexes.
Okay.
They might, and I don't understand what that is, but that's
Yeah.
what I understand that word is, and asexual.
Mhm.
They just,
To me, it's even more puzzling as people who just, it's just not a factor.
Mhm.
And that puzzles me more than any of the other letters.
Mhm. Yeah, you know, I think for all of us, the IA, and the plus, it's still really new. I will be the first to admit that I don't understand it all. I don't have all the information. I need to do some more research. But I think that's part of my growth as a human being, in particular, as a gay man, to keep educating myself.
I wonder if RIC, if their website might have some helpful things on that.
Yeah,
I've been there and I've looked at it and I don't remember.
yeah.
Yeah, they do have books.
What?
They have book recommendations.
Mhm. I think it would be worth revisiting in a meeting to talk about that.
Well, since the list keeps growing, would it be well to describe it that in the creation of gender that God describes, or God strives for diverse ends? That'd be a good summation.
I think so. What do you think?
I like that.
Just to remember one thing, and this is probably very basic, or maybe it's not. But one thing that I have really learned also in the last year is there is a big difference between gender and sexual orientation. Because if you are a male and you think you were born female, you could still be attracted to women. Is that right?
Don't ask me.
So I mean, so how you feel inside, how you feel when you were born inside
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily determine who or what is who is gonna be your mate for life, who you're gonna decide to be intimate with. So I wanted to point that out.
It just reminds me of how fearful or uncomfortable we are relating to someone who appears differently, and thus turn away or reject or ignore or don't accept.
Or just really great comment.
I think we can,
It's just also something we came back from South Dakota by Highway 7 the other day, coming in past the school up there, and then up on the hill. Well, anyway, and down past this big church, and it was their idea, but they had doors set up on the lawn, doors painted different colors. And God opens the door, or God is welcome, you know. I thought, well, with our tornado winds in Minnesota. You have to really be proud of, but I thought, boy, did that read a message. It wasn't offensive, but it was just, you know, doors are open. I thought, oh, what a neat idea.
Yeah.
Can we borrow it?
I'm sure they didn't put copyright on it. That's gonna be interesting about that.
I like it. One thing, and I guess my journeys, is I'm a person that's very curious about human beings, and I always enjoy learning people's stories, and so that's one thing that I guess that's helped me on my journey to learn more about all the acronyms and learn more. So Jennifer, you have something?
I don't know if I can put this right, but you have this, okay, that spectrum from homosexual to heterosexual. But if we're all God's children, I think a lot of it is the non-faith or the ones that believe, you know, it's a sin, homosexual. If we're all God's children, we wouldn't need that
Mhm.
bar. And we'd
Yeah.
all be the same.
Yeah, yeah, that, good point.
But it's a long ways coming, I realize, but we're on our way.
It's some sort of evolution in God's creation.
Mhm.
I was gonna say something, what was it? So I love the discussion, and let's keep it on, but I got a question. Would it be helpful in terms of visibility and toward our community, toward our church or whatever, to have some literature of some sort passed out on exactly what LGBTQIA is, and with definitions of everything, so people are educated, know what they are, what's going on and what they're talking about. Would that be helpful?
I think it sure would.
Yeah, okay.
Education, contrary to what some of our brothers and sisters in Christ think, education is not a bad thing.
Right.
Well, most everybody in this room knows I'm the most anti-literalist imaginable. And, you know, it just stands to me that, reason to me, that when God inspired somebody to write something,
Mhm.
that person would have received that inspiration in a limited way, just like we're limited now. We don't understand what all this means, and we're willing to admit that we don't. But when God inspires somebody to say something, that person said it in the language that they understood.
Right.
And that time of our existence was totally male dominated, and that's what they understood.
Mhm.
And so it isn't at all amazing to me that when we try to read the Bible literally today,
Mhm.
we get really screwed up.
Mhm. Yeah, it's confusing. It's like, for me, you know, I get a hodgepodge of things coming at me and saying, okay, this says, well, the verses, you know, especially, was it Romans 2 verses 6 through whatever, that says men shall not sleep with other men or unnatural relations with other men. What does that mean? Does it mean that men who are homosexual shouldn't have sex with heterosexual people? Or does it mean that they should not have sex with other men, period, because it's unnatural? I don't know. That confuses me. So I'm going, okay. And then what was it? What was the other one that, and then they said that, that verse has to do, well, it doesn't really have to do with homosexuality. It has to do with men, or adult men having sex with younger men.
With children.
With children, yeah, I also have heard that. And then, you know, so I mean, what do you believe? You know, yes.
That's actually in Romans 1. I just looked at it in the library because today in our lesson, we get the first half of Romans. But we don't get the second half, which has often been the part that's used in a negative way.
Right.
As you're talking about it. And it's difficult language to listen to.
Yeah.
Good thing we didn't read it this morning. I don't think it's in the lessons. The first part of Romans is great, but the last half of the chapter is.
There are some real problems with Romans.
Yeah. Also, reconcilingworks.org. That's the Lutherans for full participation. There are a lot of great resources. I'm just looking at it on the website, and the definitions that we're talking about, all those things are there. So
They
it's
are
pretty
okay.
easy to access.
Okay, I will take a look at that.
Yeah.
Maybe we all can.
It's called reconcilingworks.org,
Okay,
and that's Lutherans for full participation.
thank you. Thank you.
I think it'd really be fun to get into the Bible study and do some other, to look at these, what they call clobber texts.
Yes,
That are often used. I mean, here we have the Romans and Leviticus and other ones that have come up with traditionally, and really been some good scholarship that's been done on them to help understand them. So that when we are asked questions about this, especially by maybe somebody on the other side of the viewpoint, we can argue constructively and give them our opinion rather than just saying, well, I haven't studied that passage. So I think that'd be really worthwhile to dig into those texts
absolutely.
with some modern scholars.
Just, thoughts. From you.
I was wondering if we should take some time now in small groups or.
That's up to you.
that.
You're the boss.
No. No, we're all on this journey together.
Yes, we are.
I was thinking we could take some time in small groups and, talk about what we just talked about, I guess. And what are your thoughts about doing something forward from here? Where would you like to see the church go, or what actions, we could take our journey on, so.
Sure. What kind of time are we looking at right now?
Yeah, clear.
It's a quarter after right now.
Quarter after 10.
So you have
So
15.
15 minutes. So maybe we'll take 7 minutes in small groups and then come back and just get a couple of brief.
Yeah, we'll get the highlights and we'll take some notes.
Well, church starts at 10:45, right?
Correct.
Okay,
They have time.
okay, all right.
Okay.
So maybe 10 minutes.
10 minutes in small groups.
And then be back as group.
Where would you like, where would you like to see our church here, from here for?
Visibility, transparency, education.
Discuss where our church over here, transparency, would like to see it as well.
We know that we looked into getting the RIC thing on our sign out there.
Oh, I keep looking at them, but it's not. Yeah. That's okay to make. Again.
So I think.
Yeah, also, I think that written copy of statement on the table, too, like,
So,
I know it's still.
get the RIC.
So this is what we get.
Okay.
But it doesn't have a statement. I always thought our statement would be on this,
Oh.
and it's not, so we need to like do another. Picture frame of statement.
Picture frame the statement. And what you would do was that you would put it right next.
Yeah, which is great.
So what do you think about all this?
You
know, I have seen my own devil.
I thought about that, maybe that's the one.
Things don't get down.
Races, I mean, what these things. But then I was reminded that
That is
it was. Game that had
Yeah.
It's not, it's so much.
That's well understood. Like that, no more people.
Soviet Union just collapsed. And then such a big thing. But the next thing here, that.
Which decade was that? Which decade was that? Did it overlap with the anti-communist?
But, the what?
We're gonna record a lot of that.
We've been years thing. Utilize the Bible.
Right, right.
Churches and pastors and praise and modern. It's all.
The excitement was gone. Question, what is it about human behavior condition that feels like that they need to have some?
Last year,
What age motivates people and suggest it's developed and others have available motivation.
It brings up a lot of fear. All planning tendencies, you know, oftentimes.
I think that's great.
And then.
Yeah.
They were subject to one part of the hearing, you know. When you tend to forward
The point is that what we are really fighting for, what is really needed, is in our shadow.
temporary, it's temporary and not,
So,
big now.
what did we do? What did we do? Oh, we- Yeah. We'll try.
Oh, yeah. We'll make that not so.
Well, I might not see the table, but I think it's not, let me make that one. Finish up what they're doing right now.
Are you gonna be able to? And,
Right now, yes, I will. Oh, or I'll remember.
okay.
Ladies and germs, I just wanted to say to you, I just wanted to say 3 to 5 minutes. We're gonna finish up our discussion because I don't want to shock you by just saying, come back. So 3 to 5 minutes and we'll come back as a big group and share, just 1 or 2 things about maybe what we talked about. Okay?
Anyway, so. It's not like Native American. But it's her.
You know, he actually kept his daughter.
Yeah, remember that one.
When it's talking about in another place, identify this.
Depends on.
Interpretation.
So I mean, it's all.
Maybe to put a resolution in front of the.
Right.
Use that. Pastors, because they don't want to educate.
Right. Right. Wow. I think now I have to go and reread that. What book is studying or is it?
Yeah, I know.
It's in Genesis. I don't know my Old Testament.
And I remember they have the close. Leaves it. So when it comes up, we got people that grab the Bible, you shake that. in our face and say, I don't mind my- What are you talking about? I don't have to think.
It's what.
Somebody must record it. Just get it.
I am extremely. Yeah, but I probably, I was more my thinking as, you know, people are probably more tolerant. Well, I agree. But if we can probably. For years and years later. A couple of literally. It's like, these guys are. And they were rangers. So I said, okay, I feel like this. I felt like a real. But I realized.
Oh, that's all. Okay. That's bad.
No, I just. We're not much guilt or again. It's some. It's been going on. That's so happy. So happy.
Let's get. Share with us. The ideas.
You have to get right.
Go to. Share a couple.
For future steps.
Future steps, what you would like to see. Okay, so, we can just roll, what table wants to go first?
Well, we kind of, like when I mainly, I can speak for the two of us, we put some maybe little things to try to, as you mentioned, the visibility and the transparency, just trying to get our heads together about little ways that I kind of was thinking, well, maybe the spirit moved me to put he, him on my name tag. If that might be something like that, or if we can do ways that Prince Peace might make the RIC a little bit more visible and transparent.
That does, we had, another visitor at our group church RIC meeting, and, that person was very excited when I said I should be using my pronouns at church more. I use them at work all the time, but when it comes to church, my church life, I don't seem to be bringing it more there. So I agree that having it visible right on our name tags will show people that, yes, we're welcome here. And that please use your pronouns of choice and let us know. That's a great example. Next table.
We were off task.
Okay.
We had a, but I do wanna, say one thing that I think it helps me personally. Is to encounter more people who are not me. And I think we need to think about how we incorporate that more into our own conversation here. Because I think, well, no, I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna say there's a lot of us who probably are similar. But I don't know where we are in the spectrum, but I think it helps when I hear stories from people who have a different experience than I do.
Keep up that curiosity and find people who are different than us.
Yeah.
That's a great example too. Next table.
Well, speaking for adult ed and adult forum, we hope to do some stuff. I ordered some books last year, and actually we had a bunch of them. We had a dozen books or so out there. I don't know if any of you picked any of them up. They were free. That had definitions and some statements in there. From Reconciling works, from their books. And I'd also picked up the one that works, or that's on the Bible study that's written by people who are of a different gender or sexual orientation, from their perspective, and how they've been badly commented on, and here's a new way of looking at this versus, and then bringing up some others who were saying that we should have maybe a series where we could talk about this stuff, but also include the other things. I was saying I had met Kelly Sherman, whatever her married name, but she said she is Lakota, who actually was with the Lutheran, or with the World Council of Churches, and by the literacy. Anyway. So anyway, it's, she's someone who said she could put me in contact, because I was saying our acknowledgement of land, we're acknowledging being on Lakota land, that should mean something to us, and we can study that. And I said, and we're a new RIC congregation, and she said, great, that's part of this, so it's not, there's so much in that, we need to unpack that this coming year and work on it. With adult forums, but then we'll try and do that.
That's great.
Adult forums.
Noted.
Thank you.
Noted.
I also brought up about just trying to help us all to be better equipped to deal with modern biblical scholarship and how to address some of the what we call clobber texts of scripture. I mean, we heard one later today in the Romans. It wasn't a part of this more inflectionary, but how do you deal with that? I mean, that Steve talked about the unnatural. What does that mean in Paul? And so that we could really address this, because my sense is that in some of these very conservative churches, the people are just are much better equipped than we are. They have a perspective that I disagree with, but they get it pounded into them.
Yeah.
And I think that oftentimes as pastors, we're afraid, because we've got the stewardship program coming up, and like, if we bring up this, we want to drive away, So, I mean, it's a complex matter, but I think that you have a good committee now to work with this, and you have a great pastor. So I think that you can, a good team, that you're moving forward in a very positive way. Praise God.
I just want to say that I love Galilee, but I am so pleased and comforted and thanking God for Prince of Peace. This has been an amazing journey so far with you guys. Thank you so much.
My thoughts on this clobber text that you're talking about. 6,000 years of Jewish and Christian theology has preached homosexuality as a sin. It was in about the 1980s that things started to turn around. So we've had 40 years of trying to address these clobber texts in a more honest and old godly way. So it seems to me that we've got a heck of a long ways to go to compete with the 6,000 years of teaching that preceded it.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it's just 1980s, but, we'd have to, I think really fun. I mean, how Jews handle these texts. Often are very different than the way Jews handle the Old Testament, let's put it this way, is very different than the way Christians handle it. And so to sit down with some rabbis to talk to them about how they understand the laws of Leviticus is very unlikely.
Oh, wow.
Was it better or worse? What the way we're going, our thinking today, what does it compare to more the?
Well,
To the.
I can't, whether it's better or worse, I think we're being more enlightened, and quite honestly, I think that perhaps the Jews have been far ahead of us. Because they've had to wrestle with it.
Yeah.
I look at World War II and the Holocaust.
Yeah.
The Jews, they have a big perspective or a big spectrum of, from conservative to orthodox to, so they have quite a few. I mean, I've heard they had a talk on NPR once on abortion from a Jewish perspective.
Yeah, sorry.
So, I mean,
Sorry.
but the thing about Judaism, they allow their scriptures to be interpreted for now. And there's so many Christian fundamental that don't want to do that. They think it should be unchanging, it shouldn't be reinterpreted now.
And it needs to be, or something's gonna happen. That's the way I mean, we got to, this is the world.
So before you had said, is it better or worse? And you're saying, to be reinterpreted, I would say, maybe there are different developments. And we're doing this, new development now. And we have, it's kind of maybe experimental, and we try it. And have some kind of faith and, following what seems best at this time.
I think it's gonna be because I was telling these people, my granddaughter's a junior this year. And when she was going out with friends, and then her and this one friend liked different food, so they went one day to this restaurant. I said, who is it? And she said the name. I said, well, it's what nationality? It sounded like an Asian name, so I was asking her because I wouldn't know. Grandma, what does it matter? So maybe they're thinking the same way about, their body, their thinking. And I was told to discuss it on their trip, but he can't share it with me. What goes on in Denver stays there. But we need to get these kids back into the church, because my kids aren't doing a very good idea. And supporting it very well, or trying to be a part of it. Maybe these younger kids can be that are in youth groups, and if they can maybe be taught to start reaching out to all their friends to get involved or something. I mean, it's gotta be doable. There's gonna be enough too much hate in the world.
Was there any other comments from the last table?
No, because we misunderstood the assignment.
Probably too well, that's fine. If you learned anything or want to share anything else. Otherwise, I'd really like to thank my best friend Steve for coming in and helping us help facilitate the discussion.
Thank you.
Everybody keep talking, and that's the way we'll keep things going forward and keep learning and growing. So appreciate you making the effort to be here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.